Okay, it's just setting up. And here we are for another episode of Dualistic Unity Raw. I'm really excited about this episode because I've had a weird fucking day, and it's a call-in show, so that means anybody could just call in and be a part of the show. If you'd like to, just go to dualisticunity.com/live, fill in the little form, and you'll end up in the waiting room. Everybody gets about 10 minutes to just air their grievance or ask a question or share an insight or anything that you'd like to do. So don't waste time. Definitely jump in there, because usually nobody jumps in until the very end, and then a bunch of people pile up, and we don't always get a chance to have everybody get their chance to have a say. And we really do want people to have a chance to have a say. So that all said, I'll stop rambling about it, but I do want to take a moment to say thank you to everyone who has already voted for the Dualistic Unity podcast in the People's Choice Podcast Awards this year. If you haven't done so, you can do so at podcastawards.com. Registration and voting takes about 3 minutes in total. It doesn't take much time, and we really appreciate it. We are in 3 different categories this year. We are in the People's Choice category, we are in the Religion and Spirituality category, and we're in the Society category, all of which is really exciting because those categories have kind of a bearing on what we're talking about, but we go through so much more. And so anybody who stumbles across us in even the semifinal slate or even in the running is going to have quite an experience. So that said, I'll pass it to Andrew, and then we have somebody in the waiting room.
All right. I think that's the quickest we've gotten someone in the waiting room on one of these calls. But I was talking to my lives over here. For anyone watching over there, not going to be paying attention, but we are live on Twitch for call-in shows. You can call in and be on a podcast episode. But that the People's Choice Podcast Awards, we were in it last year and we came pretty close. So I'm feeling good about this year. But anyone who can take about, I don't know, 1 or 2 minutes of their time to help us out with that. I do have it linked in my bio too. So if you're having a tough time, as tough of a time as I am getting that statement out there, finding the link, it is in my bio. So if you go to my Instagram or TikTok, you can just get to that there, and it means the world to us. So if you got a chance to do that, that would be awesome. And excited for whoever's in the waiting room.
It's Amanda, which is great because we have a lot of things that are happening on the Dualistic Unity side, especially with our new sales agents, as they have been reaching out to people asking if they would like to advertise on the Dualistic Unity podcast. And of course, we're reaching out to people who resonate with this mentality, who would be a good fit for this discussion. We don't want advertisers necessarily that are out pitching insurance, right? If we can, we'd like to have advertisers that are talking about cannabis or psychedelics, or something that doesn't require you to believe in something or think that you're not already enough. And so if you happen to know a company like that and you think that they would be a good fit for the audience because they're not just trying to take advantage of people for a profit, get them in touch with us. We would definitely like to work with them. After that brief segue, I'm going to pass it over to Amanda now and let her in the room.
Hey. And what is up? You probably can't hear me because your audio is connecting. Unless you're listening to it on another device. Hey, Amanda, how you doing?
I try to have the show going on as many devices as I can. And I'm like, all right, we've got the TV, we've got the phone, we've got the other laptop. I was like, all right. But then they're all going off, all the sounds. I was like, let me mute them all before I jump on. And so thank you for helping me get it together. Oh my God. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. I was saying I think this is a record timing for first caller on the call-in show. I think we've had call-in shows where no one calls in for like 40 minutes and then we have a queue of like 5 people. So we appreciate you getting the ball rolling and being an example of making the leap early and often. Love to see it.
And the merch. I just wanted to mention, anybody who's looking for Dualistic Unity merch, Amanda's showing some off right now. You can find some. Just go to dualisticunity.com, go to the store section, and in that store section, you'll find a merch button, which goes to our Teespring account where you can get a t-shirt like that. Or you can join us on Patreon. As a tier 3 subscriber, you actually get a new piece of Dualistic Unity merch every 3 months, just to show our appreciation for your support. Like one of those mugs, for example, which I was really quite happy with when I designed that mug. My life is an epic story unfolding before me. And isn't that the case for all of us? So definitely, if you can, join us on Patreon, patreon.com/dualistic unity. Thank you very much, Amanda, for showing off all that shit. It's good to have you here. I want to rant for a minute unless somebody would like to talk about something more exciting. All right, awesome. So as you know, I have a cat and my cat's name is Bear. And Bear is a cool cat, but he is not an outdoor cat because I live in a busy area with a lot of traffic and whatnot. And frankly, I care about my cat. And so he lives indoors, but that doesn't mean I don't want him to get outside. And so I take him for walks, and I have taken him for walks for a long time. I take him out to the yard and sometimes around the building, around my area, but always on the grass and always where nobody's going to, freak him out because he's a little skittish. He's young. Anyway, a few times a neighbor has come up to me, sometimes different neighbors, and said, "Oh, is that your cat? Can I come and pet your cat?" And every time I'm like, "Oh, he's a little skittish, definitely don't come near." And they never listen. They never listen. Like, I'm just like, no, no, oh, it's happening. And then I have to take my cat inside because he's freaking the fuck out. So today, taking Bear for a walk in the front lawn because he yells at me in the morning if I don't. This car drives by and slows right down. I'm looking at the car and I'm like, okay, what the hell is this all about? Somebody gets out of the passenger side. It's this older gentleman. And I say older gentleman, I'm going to say he's in his 50s. I'm not saying he's like 80 or 90. That'd be a different story. I'd be slightly more understanding about this, but he's in his 50s or so. And he gets out. He's like, "Hey, still not sure why he did this. Is your cat friendly?" And so thinking, well, shit, I've been through this before. I'm going to try something new. I just said no. No, my cat's not friendly. And he still kept walking towards me. And I'm like, just stop walking. Just stop right there. Just stop. And he kept walking towards me, regardless of what I was saying to him, because he had something in mind. And I still don't know what it was because my cat freaked out. In which case I said, "Thanks a lot, you fucker." And I took my cat inside and I put him away and I came back outside. And the guy at that point had gotten into his car and fucked off. But the whole point was that it doesn't matter how direct you think you're being. Stop expecting people to listen the same way that you would. Because that's where the frustration comes from. It's like, really? Really? Still? And it's just because they have something in mind. They have that tunnel vision in mind. And so I think next time I'm just going to say, stop or fuck off. And we're going to see how that works, just for the sake of it. Or, as I was saying to Amanda earlier today, I'm going to teach my cat to attack.
Oh my goodness. It's unreal that you can be that direct even. So I'm curious the next time around what the response is. Like, how far is it going to be pushed? Because I would think that just saying straight up no, there would be some response, but it just goes to show that, like, people make up their mind and they're just doing it. And there's so many things we do and say, like, before you pet someone's dog, make sure they're okay with it. But it's not a genuine question. It's like a rhetorical question almost, because like in their head, they're like, I'm going to pet this fucking cat and I'm going to say this thing that's like, the right thing to say, the polite thing to say as you're going to do it. Like, oh shoot, I should make sure this person's okay, and not listen as to whether or not they say anything about it, because like their mind's already made up. Yeah. And so they're, I don't even know. I'm curious if they even hear you. Like if it even processes, like maybe they hear the noise, but for it to process and be like, no, because they're not even considering that as a response. So like they actually don't hear it or something. I don't know, but that's pretty funny that it was that direct and they were still like, nah, I'm gonna keep going. That seems like a good idea.
A good follow-up would just be my black cat just barreling across the street, just lunging at him. He's really not friendly.
I like the idea of training your cat to attack. I feel like that's hilarious. Or having like a little spray bottle with water and like spray him, like, how they use spray bottles to train cats. I feel like that's just as effective. I've used that on kids when I babysit them. It's like, I can't hit you, but that doesn't mean I can't fuck with you. That doesn't mean that I can't make you really want to not do what you're doing. So it's spray. Stop that. Oh my God. Bad human.
That's it. You have to find the humor in this stuff. Like you have to do what you need to do. And in my case, I needed to take the cat inside because he was freaking out. Right. And aside from that, just kind of find it funny if you can. It's not to say it's not frustrating, and it's allowed to be frustrating, but why is it frustrating? It's frustrating because we tend to have this tendency of looking at our own progress and then projecting it onto how everybody else should be acting. And we totally forget that we weren't always acting this way either. We aren't always listening either. We aren't always as receptive to what's being said around us either. And that's where you have to look at it and go, okay, well, there's no harm, no foul. Cat's okay. Nah, I'll just make sure the next time if he slows down, I'm just going to take the cat inside and then talk to the guy about why he's so goddamn inconsiderate.
Yeah, because when you realize that you do it too, that we're all capable of doing it and do it for different things as well, it's a lot more difficult to get so overly frustrated. It doesn't mean that there isn't, varying degrees of that, but when you realize that you do something yourself, or you at least have the capacity to do something yourself, then it does change the tone of the response, and where it's coming from. I guess it's more of an understanding tone as opposed to just like a visceral, you're awful sort of like objective stance. It's got some, I don't know, softer edges to it when you realize that you're just as capable of doing that shit.
Exactly. Amanda, I was wondering, since this is something that we've been doing for the last couple of weeks to a couple months now, we've been working on Dualistic Unity, and we've really been focusing on brainstorming as to what we're going to do moving forward. And I just had this fantastic conversation with Riley, who joined us for the third episode of Being High with Dualistic Unity. And we were just discussing our general direction of normalizing altruism, the point of the community, the point of the discussion, which is just to balloon the discussion, to continue, in fact, just exercising the things that we're talking about. And I think that's been something we've talked about before in terms of a lot of gurus saying, we're all one, pay $3,000 for a 2-day or 3-day retreat, or here's $6,000 for a 5-day retreat where you barely get to see me. It's like, what happened to us all being one? Where's the participation? Where's the love? And why aren't you sharing all that wealth? So that all said, we're starting to make progress on our sales side. And it's largely because of you and the encouragement that you've been offering all of our new sales strategists and all of our new sales agents. And I just wanted to bring that up very briefly because it's really important that everybody in the community understand Amanda is not getting paid right now. Like all of the time and energy and effort that she puts in to Dualistic Unity, to being there for all the people in the community, to being there with Andrew and me, and just putting in not just the energy into the community, but into her own path. All of this she's doing on top of a fucking job. And so it's really important to recognize that this community grows and thrives based on all of our enthusiasm for it. It really does. And not the enthusiasm for the community, but for the path that you are on, that we are all on, which gives you that cup that spilleth over, right? And so we just wanted to say thank you to Amanda and to everyone, regardless of how much you are doing in the community. The fact is that your path in itself is what makes the community possible, is what makes it possible for us to continue these conversations and grow as much as we are. You, Amanda, and you, the listener, and you, Andrew, and all of us involved, it's fucking cool. And I just wanted to bring it up that it's so incredible to see everybody helping to pull this boat as it gains some speed.
Yeah, Amanda, you're very much appreciated for everything that you do. And it just, yeah, it's incredible to see that just you willing to do it yourself and work on your own stuff and from it have the enthusiasm to continue to push and help us push, knowing that things are turning, things are changing, things are moving, and inevitably there's some trajectory. I don't know what it is, but something's happening here, and it's amazing to see, and very much appreciate everything you're willing to do to help us make that push.
I I appreciate the appreciation, right? And you guys know that I do it because I want to, and not because I had to, or no one asked, and no one, because there's always that like that narrative that like, oh, be careful, that you don't get taken advantage of. And it's like, whether, that never crossed my mind when I thought about contributing to Dualistic Unity, because I I was appreciating the space that you both were creating, and me adding to it is just expanding that space. But you guys were the ones who started this conversation and decided to share it in 2021. And I was just immediately drawn to the openness and the almost the embracing of what's unpleasant. And you guys were talking about things that didn't make me feel better and didn't solidify my identity, and you weren't coddling me, and you weren't creating a space to coddle. You were creating a space to discuss the things that we all think about, and pondering the answers that we want, or the answers that we would never expect. And I really appreciated that rawness, that authenticity. And I could tell that you weren't doing it for a round of applause. Like you guys had 0 followers at that point. You were just doing it because you wanted to do it. There was nothing going on. So it was like, they're not doing this for me. They're not doing this for a huge crowd. They're doing this because this is what they choose to do with their time. And I respect that so much. And I treasure it. And that's why it feels effortless to be in this space with both of you, to expand it all by working on myself. I was having a conversation with someone at the Denver retreat, and they apologized because they had like needed to sit on the sidelines, right? Like there's a group of us and they're sitting outside of the group, and they're like, I'm so sorry for not participating. And I'm like, for not helping. And I told her, I was like, that by working on yourself, you are helping the group. By you sitting in your shit, you are doing the best thing that I could ever ask for. I don't need you to participate in a conversation with me about X, Y, and Z. You can participate. The door is always open for you to jump into that conversation. But when you are dealing with the unpleasant parts of yourself that you don't like, that you don't want to share, when you're sitting in the middle of a fresh pile of shit that you just made and you're dealing with it, that's the best gift you could ever give me, is working on yourself. And so as much as people see me being active, them not being active doesn't mean that you're not contributing. You're contributing a huge amount. We're in this together. And every single day that you make it through your own narratives, every single day that you let go of your limitations and your judgments and the concept of who you think you are, all of that contributes way more than you participating in the Discord and welcoming a new member. Not that you can't welcome the new member, but all of that feels so superficial when I compare it to the grittiness of dealing with your own mess. Like that's a huge contribution to all of us and to collective change. And so I just want to thank everyone. Thank you for going through your shit. Not for me, but for you. Not for us, not for the applause, not for DU, not even for anyone else on this planet. Thank you for doing it for you, because you doing that makes that opportunity for you to shine, for you to be yourself, for you to let go of everything you think you have to hold on to. And me watching you shine, me watching you live your best life is the best thing that I could want for you. And when you do that, you inspire me to do that. When you're authentic, you motivate me to do that. And if I've never done that, I'm so glad that I get to see it. And so when I see someone breaking through a wall that I never thought about, or a wall that I haven't yet recognized in myself, that makes me wonder, is that something that I might be able to consider? Is that something that I might struggle with at all? Because honestly, I just don't know what I don't know. And so watching all of you process everything you've been through, everything you're going through, and everything you're going to go through, it gives me a limitless opportunity to just see all the scenarios that I've either made it through, might be stuck in, or might find myself in. And so I'm so eternally grateful for every single one of you going through your challenges, and then being brave enough to share it, because it's one thing to go through your shit, but then for you to open up and share it, and to share where you got stuck, to share your insights, that is a treasure. And so I'm so appreciative of everyone just going through it And, Ray mentioned that, we're picking up speed, and we're only picking up speed because everyone is contributing. We're only picking up speed because all of you are joining, all of you are participating, and you're continuing to participate, and you're choosing to every single day. And so I want to thank you for every single moment that you share with us. Because as much as I may not say it, it impacts me a lot. And I wouldn't be this at this place without all of you. And as much as you guys thank me for, helping to build DU, you also helped me build this space for me to exist for myself. And I could never thank you enough.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing that the only thing you ever got to do is let go of it yourself, is work on yourself. And then, inevitably, when there isn't so much weight, there's more space to do things. So I appreciate you for working on you and doing your thing, and allowing me the space to do it as well. Because inevitably, every time someone, works on themselves, lets go of something, is willing to not go back to that thing that they've always gone back to when they're feeling a little bit uncertain, it creates a little more space for everyone. Like it just does. It has that impact. Like because none of us are separate or divided, and there is a seamless interconnectedness as this just being your experience, that anything you do is going to have some degree of impact on everything inevitably. And so that's the beauty of that recognition, is that you're not responsible for anyone else's space or willingness, but you being responsible for you has more impact on them than anything you outwardly attempt to do for them or to them or even in their presence. So yeah, again, I appreciate everything you're willing to do yourself, and then all the help that comes with it. It really does mean a lot, Amanda.
It means a lot to me too. And I think you can feel that. And so it's less about what I'm doing and what's driving me to do it, that I think makes the biggest impact. When I think about the ways that I've been practicing this. So you ever lose touch with a friend for like 6 months or a year, and then all of a sudden they call you up and they're like, I'm so sorry I've been gone. And I'm like, man, it's all good. You want to grab a beer? Like, I'm not mad. Like, and it's because I learned early that people are really focused on their own journey, and that's okay. But I used to have the expectation that, because I'm your friend, you're supposed to make time for me. Because I'm your friend, you're supposed to call me regularly. Because you're my boyfriend, you're my brother, because you're something. And I've attached an expectation to that something, that role, then you're supposed to reach out to me every once in a while. And then I started realizing that, like, I was getting angrier than the people that were quote unquote ignoring me. And I was like, I don't know, this expectation feels like it's really hurting me the most. So maybe we just don't care if people don't call us for a week, a day, a month, a year. And when they do, if they have thought of me and they want to reconnect, that's an opportunity to reconnect. We don't have to think about the last time that we were speaking or the last time that we were in connection. It's right now. And I've been busy living my life too. Do I call them every week? Do I call them every month? And it was humbling to make more space for me to fill up versus making more space and expecting other people to fill it up how I wanted them to fill it up. And making that space just for me to fill it and being okay there really opened me up. So that way, when people reached out, they would say like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, bah humbug. I don't want your apology. How you been? What's going on with you? Let's catch up. You want to grab beer? Let's go grab a food. How have you been? I want to catch up with who you are now, because the version of you that I'd be mad at didn't call. That version is a year old. It's not the version that's standing in front of me that remembered, that reached out despite knowing that we haven't talked in a year. Like that takes a little bit from them. And I applauded that. I appreciated that. Like, you thought of me and you reached out. Like, thank you so much, man. Like, I appreciate it. So good to hear from you. And I've been doing that constantly, and just being mindful that as much as I've learned to appreciate the space that I make for myself, that I also respect and honor the space that other people have for themselves. So even when they want to give it to me and they don't really need to, I say, hey, like, I'm okay. Like, you don't got to worry about me. You don't have to call me all the time. You don't have to, don't like, I'm making it work. I'm doing my own thing, and I'm enjoying my time with myself, for myself. And if you can be there, that's a bonus. But I don't ever want you to think that you have to be there, that you have to call at all. Only do it if you have the space for it. And if I notice that you are giving me a little bit too much, then I might just say, hey, like, I don't need you to do that. Like, I don't know if we didn't talk about this yet, but you don't have to. In fact, I'd rather you take a day for yourself. I'd rather when's the last time you did something for yourself? If you had like a spa day at home, do you take yourself out on a date? Like, I've taken myself out to the movies and to dinner, and I've had people ask me, like, is somebody joining you? No. Can I get a table for one? And a lot of people don't understand that. They're like, no one's meeting you. I'll be dressed up. I'll be in a dress, makeup, hair, everything done. And I take myself out, and a lot of people don't understand why I'm doing that if they're taking care of me. And then I explain, as much as I love hanging out with people, I also enjoy hanging out with myself, but I've had to learn how to do that. And I practice how to do that, because if I ever stopped putting time and attention towards that, then just like any other skill, it gets rough. And so the relationship that I have with myself is ongoing, and it's something that I prioritize. And I hope that instead of telling people to do that, just by leading by example and being able to show them how much fun it is, that people stop feeling like they need to hang out with other people, and that they only do it when it happens effortlessly. And then they can really embrace that moment with someone else, versus being in that moment and thinking, okay, now we're here. Are they happy with me? Do they like me? What's their opinion? And that takes away from the moment that you're there with them. But if you show up to every moment just for you, then you give yourself the greatest possibility to be there, to embrace all of it, to receive it. Because, as much as you could have a whole room full of people singing your praises, if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, then none of those words will matter, and none of the intentions that other people have will ever matter. How do you feel about you? How do you hold space for you? How do you care for yourself? And there's always room to grow. And so it's not like I know all of it, but we've been practicing for quite a number of years. And so, we're pretty good self-read.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And even that we were talking about this maybe yesterday at some point, just that need to hang with others or be with others, or the need to be in a relationship. You can't fully appreciate or enjoy the experience or the other person or the interaction or any of it if it's a need at all, because it's fulfilling something that you think is empty that isn't actually empty. And so therefore the person, the situation, the relationship is a means to an end. So not needing someone is the only way to fully appreciate being with them. Any degree of need to interact with them or be with them or hang with them will take away from the experience almost inevitably. Like it's almost a guarantee if you need someone to be there, because then you're not seeing them for them. It's like you're doing it for some other motive or reason that isn't fully and wholly fulfilled in and from the experience itself, right? And so it's super important to come back to that question when you are holding on to someone, a situation, a person, an experience, like why you feel like you need it so badly. Like, why do you feel like you need that so badly? And it's usually not a very comfortable thing to ask yourself, because there's something that you're avoiding, that you're, using the thing to overcome. But it's vital, because if you don't, it's just going to fester. That feeling isn't, like, you're never going to fully be able to experience a situation or enjoy or appreciate a person unless you don't need them, because you don't need anything outside of you, because you know that anything outside of you can't do it. it can't adequately fulfill this void because the void doesn't exist, at least, not in the way that you think it does.
I know I do think about the way that my relationships are changing. And so I've never felt more comfortable being like in a space that only I'm filling up. And a lot of that practice is coming from living alone. So for the first time in my life, I am living in my own apartment, January of this year. And it's been quite a trip, man. I've always lived with boyfriends, best friends, strangers, and family, right? A good variety. We've lived with a good mix of different types of people, and that was wonderful because if anybody spends time with me, like I love to spend time with other people. When I was in middle school, they gave us a list of words to define, and one of the words was gregarious. And someone used me as an example. They're like, Amanda is very gregarious, and gregarious means loves to be surrounded by people, loves to engage people, loves to talk. Absolutely. Well, I admit it. I love it. I've got the gift of gab, and sometimes too much gab. But it's something that I've always appreciated, is being around other people. But for the first time, living in my own apartment with no distractions, and there are no kids, no pets, no roommates, nothing here. It is just me, myself, and I, and a huge pile of insecurities, right? That just happened to pop up, and it came complimentary with the home. But it was really good though, because there were no distractions. There was nowhere for me to go. So sometimes it feels like living in a personal oasis. No one can disturb me. It is everything I want it to be at any moment that I want it to be. If we want to sleep all day, we sleep all day. If we want to stay in our pajamas, if we want to make an omelet at 3 a.m, we can do whatever we want. There's no one to bother. There's no bathroom to share, right? All that sounds fantastic, except when you are having insecure moments and you are just like, oh, I feel so, fill in the blank, everybody. Depressed. I'm feeling so lonely. I'm feeling so worthless. I'm feeling so empty. I feel like I want connection. And it's like, I only wanted that connection, those moments, because I wasn't comfortable being in the space by myself. It's not that I was ever thinking, oh, I need to reach out to a friend in those dark moments because I was like, oh, they would love to hear from me now. It's like, no, I was thinking to reach out to someone because I didn't like the feeling that was coming up. And I decided not to reach out to anyone because I've heard the phrase so many times, misery loves company. And I always took the approach of being the exact opposite. When I was feeling miserable, stay away. I don't want your company. I don't want you around. If I'm feeling like shit, there's nothing that you're going to do except push another button that I'll make just for you. I'll make you a custom button if you come around. And that's how it ended up feeling. And so I was like, no, I'd rather be by myself. I'd rather cry in the shower alone or deal with it, scream into a pillow, run. I'd rather do anything by myself, and just to get through the feeling, because I knew that nobody could really get rid of it. They could only distract me for a little bit of time. And then as soon as their company was gone, as soon as it was me by myself again, here's the shit. And so that's why I was like, no, misery does not want company. Misery wants solitude. Misery wants to process. And being able to practice that over these years has helped a great deal. But now it's like we went to the advanced class. Living by myself felt like, oh no, we've cracked a new level of what misery can be by myself, with the remaining insecurities and the new ones that have come as of late. And I really appreciate it. I know that for people that have had a lot of siblings, they've always been in relationships, all that, they just haven't had enough time to practice what it means to be in their own space. And they don't know what it means to fill that space just by themselves, just because they want to. So I definitely encourage, if you can, at any point, you can have a space, or you can schedule solo time, like going to a hotel for a weekend every once in a while. Like, learn what it means to just be on your own. Take yourself to the museum on a day where it's empty. Take yourself to the park on a day where it's rainy, where there's nobody there. There are so many environments for you to practice being by yourself. It's not just being in an apartment by yourself. But just see if you can practice it and see what comes up. And if maybe being by yourself is something that is a strength for you, what about being with people? Because everybody has a place to grow. And so if you're really great with people, then being by yourself is your challenge. If being by yourself is something that you prefer, then being with other people is your challenge. Go out of your comfort zone, because that's the place where that you'll be able to prove yourself wrong. I used to tell myself that I wasn't built for relationships. And so I didn't start dating until 20. And I spent so much time alone because I didn't trust people. But really it was that I didn't trust myself. And so instead of telling myself I can't be in a relationship, it was like, let's test that theory out. And I got to prove myself wrong. And so I encourage you to prove yourself wrong when it comes to the limitations that you think are so concrete and stone, because they're really not.
Yeah, there's a lot of value. Actually, I would say that this is the most important thing in terms of depth and presence and being yourself is the ongoing recognition and even appreciation of being alone. And it's interesting because that goes in a number of directions. You can go in the direction of having your own space, of actually just being solely responsible for yourself. And that is a certain level of being alone. And then there's this conversation where you start peeling away the idea that there are other people, that there is another awareness other than your own. And you start to recognize that being alone actually extends to being around others. And so it's really important to understand that the recognition of being alone is the recognition of being whole, right? And so it's really important to not shy away from that understanding, right? And even ask yourself, how long could you be alone for? Could you be alone for eternity? And are there fears that are associated with that? Because that's part of the journey. That's part of the toxicity that you're dealing with, part of the suffering, right? Part of that irresponsibility, part of that fear that you're not enough. So it's worth looking into that. And it's also the reason that, frankly, I caution people from getting too attached to the word we, too attached to the community even, right? Because the community becomes stronger with each and every individual who doesn't need a community, right? The sense of individual empowerment is a big part of what we're building here, right? And I say we, but it's really just me, right? But that empowerment is only felt when you're willing to stand on your own. And so it's really important to recognize that, as much as it feels good to have the community to reach out to and lean on, beware the need to, beware the idea that you must have them or you wouldn't be making the progress that you are. Beware the thought that you wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for all of us. Because it's total bullshit. Absolute horseshit. You could do this if there was no gurus, no books, no Bibles, no Torahs. You could do this if there were no teachers, no spirituality. You could do this if there was nobody else to show you the way. You could do this because it's just being you. That's all it is. It just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And the only thing that stops you from unlocking that depth is your willingness to be alone and solely responsible. And that's it. And then all of a sudden you start to recognize that it doesn't actually make a difference. The only thing it does is deepen your experience of everybody else, deepen your sensitivity of relationships, deepen your appreciation of other people's feelings. All right. And so beware the urge to think of we, because as much as it's true from a certain perspective that we are growing, that we are expanding this conversation, that we are all in this together, the fact is that that sense is growing as you need us less. So you're becoming more of yourself, and we're embodying that realization.
Oh man, it makes me wonder, with any insecurity that we have, like, really, do they all tie back to the fear of being alone? Like, does it all come back to that fear of being alone, despite it being the reality? So it's just our avoidance of that. And that one's been fucking with me a lot recently. Like, I've been going kind of back and forth between, realizing like the rawness of uncertainty, that I make an assumption about what someone's thinking, and how I used to do that without any sensitivity to the fact that I don't fucking know that. Like, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know actually how anyone's perceiving me, really. And like, it's been this one's been fucking with me hard, because I've always made the assumption that everyone sees me the way I see myself. Like, oh my God, to some degree. And it's like, I've been, I don't know, maybe the last week, I've been having a weird time because I've been getting glimpses of like alternative perspectives just of myself, or alternative perspectives of someone else through someone else's eyes, like a potential perspective. Because again, I don't know. So an alternative perspective isn't like, oh, that person probably thinks this other perspective. It's like, no, those alternative perspectives are fucking infinite. They're infinite. So there isn't any, but they're all in potential. And your perspective of yourself is just one. It's just one of those that you're holding on to. Like, holy fuck. Oh my God. Like, I don't fucking know how anyone perceives me. I don't know how they see me. I never will know how they actually see me. Someone can say stuff, someone can get things across, communicate certain things, but you can't see yourself from their eyes, from their point of view. Like, oh my God, I've made this a fucking assumption my entire life that everyone sees me the way I see myself. It is nuts. And even through this fucking, the last 2 years, it's like, I've kind of gotten it, but like, I don't know. I just feel like I haven't understood a single fucking thing this whole time. And I know that's just me making another fucking assumption, but I don't know. The last month, maybe I've felt like everything's been like wiped or set back in a sense. And I know that's not the case. And that's just me trying to be like, I know what's happening. It's like, you don't, fucker, you never do. But oh man, and I know it's just like broadening my perspective. Well, I don't know, but it's just broadening my perspective on things, seeing more of stuff, because there was still so many assumptions, a year ago. Because I look back and I'm like, oh, I felt like I like got things better, but then it's like, what the fuck am I getting in the past? So anyway, it's that one's killing me though. And so I can't settle on something, but it is at the same time, relaxing in a sense from a certain perspective. It's the ultimate relaxant, I guess, right?
As long as you don't think those perceptions matter about your actual value, then yeah, it doesn't really matter, right? It's the only thing you'd really be worried about. Why do I need to keep track of all these perceptions? Because they're a source of danger. It's really the only reason that you've been trying, right? But what's nice about understanding that you can never know how people perceive you is also understanding that you're never what people perceive. Amanda, would you like to finish up with some closing thoughts? And then we have someone in the waiting room.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, what came to mind when you were talking, Andrew, is that I perceive everything I could about you. I just don't know it. So like, I appreciate you. I perceive you as being awesome and helpful, but sometimes, I'm sure I could perceive as a pain in my ass. I'm sure I could perceive you to be not helpful. I'm sure I could perceive you to be challenging and inspiring and frustrating. Like, I feel like I could perceive you in every single combination that exists. I just either haven't experienced it or realized it yet, but they're all on the table. They're always all on the table, and they're always all wrong because they're all based on my limited view of what I'm getting from you in any particular moment. But it's not black and white. It's like even my perception is unlimited because it's always changing with all my interactions with you. And so I think that that's hilarious that, people may perceive me as being intelligent, but sometimes I feel like a damn idiot. And sometimes they perceive me to be an idiot. And so it's like, there's no way that you could just perceive me in one way and stick it there. And that won't change. And so for me now, I think that we perceive everything about everyone. We just don't lock onto it all at the same time. And so it's almost like it just changes. We're just changing the setting, but they're always all available, and you're always able to be perceived in any single one of them as well as me. And yet none of them are true, and none of them are completely accurate, and none of them are absolute. They're all just small pieces and a giant mosaic.
Yeah, it's all like, oh man, it's all fucking in that potential. Like it's always in that potential. So it's like we're seeing reality, or trying to see reality in a stagnant way, despite it changing at all times. And we're like, no, it's this shit. Ah, fuck. It's not that. And it's like we try to hold on to that though. Like,
In infinite variations.
Oh god damn. And it's like, that's like, resistance is futile. Just fucking let go. You don't know.
Or be
You don't
dragged.
know. Oh man, seriously. Oh.
This has been a lot of fun. Amanda, thank you for calling in and joining us. We really appreciate the conversation and everything that you do in the community, and the fact that you don't fucking need us. I love that. I love the fact that if Amanda were to just step away from the community entirely, she would still be out there changing the fucking world. And the same is true for every single one of you that are listening to this right now. You don't need us. You've never needed us. And if you do need us, please go away until that's not the case, and then come back and we can hang out together, because that's the only way you're going to get any benefit out of this, is if you let go of the need for it. So Amanda, thank you so much. And again, thanks for representing the merch.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. Always a pleasure chatting with you. We'll talk to you soon.
Likewise. Talk to you soon, guys. Bye.
Bye.
That was a lot of fun. Anybody who is wondering, Amanda is often on our Patreon groups and will likely be in the tier 2 group that is after this show. So if you would like to join us, patreon.com/dualistic unity. We do this 5 days a week. It's only $5 a month to be a tier 1, but we have a 7-day free trial, which actually gives you the chance to be a tier 2 member for a full week, which means you can participate in all 5 days of our group discussions. Give it a shot and see how you like it. Get involved with the group, say your piece, all of that. Speaking of which, we have another person in the waiting room. Very excited about this. It's Pam, and Pam would like to talk about being alone, which is by far one of my favorite subjects.
Likewise, there's so many directions to those 2 words. So many, perspectives you can have.
Pam, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you being here.
Good. I've got to turn off my, there we go.
Hey, Pam. Good to see you.
I'm in. I'm taking baby steps, guys. This
Love to
felt
see
doable. Yeah. So I loved hearing Amanda talk about being alone, because I kind of recognized, I was telling Ray the other day, like I was married for 24 years and I got married very soon after college, and I only had maybe like 1 or 2 short roommate situations. And then I got married, and, I never occurred to me that was an unusual situation to sort of put myself in, not having been by myself. And I was raised in an environment where I had to be hyper aware of what was going on, how everybody was feeling, and like really being kind of tuned in to prepare myself for what might potentially happen. So I never realized until I got divorced and was living alone. Number one, I fucking love it. And number 2, that like, I couldn't think when I was with other people very well. Like I couldn't have an awareness of myself and what I was feeling, because I was so focused on everybody else in the room and monitoring them and all that. And I always kind of viewed myself as like, I'm a pretty outgoing person when I'm, like talking to people in small groups. And so I always thought I was this huge extrovert. And once I started living by myself, and obviously like COVID hit a couple of years later and stuff, and I was like, dude, I'm such a huge introvert. And I love being by myself, because it was the first time that I could really like get a sense of like, how do I feel when I'm alone? Not being worried that someone else is going to come into the situation and I'm going to lose track of myself, because I'll be totally focused on what they're doing, what they're thinking, and what they're feeling. And so I really like, it's such a gift to be by myself now, that a lot of times I'll like 2 days ago, a friend of mine rang my doorbell. She was like, I'm just walking by. I thought maybe you needed to get out of the house. And I'm like, oh, you know me really well. I haven't left the house in 2 days. Like, I have an outdoor area I can go to, but just like the idea that I'm not being interfered with. And what I realize is I was the one that was like I was the one that was sort of pushing those thoughts of like, I have to be aware of all these people. Now that I'm alone and can, spend some time like just being, and that's sort of, that's like, in this period is when I kind of found Andrew online and stuff. And I was like, okay, this makes perfect sense. Like I have to like really kind of get everything out of my space so I can kind of be with myself first and kind of figure out like, what do I feel? So I really resonated with the idea of that, of just being alone.
Yeah, it's really cool to get that experience and even the realization, and just it's like coming up for air for a second, right? Because you get into these habits and these patterns and being around people, being around certain situations, being in the same sort of cycles over and over and over, and there's no break in the cycle. And so there's not even an ability to see things slightly differently. So I wonder if it was the aloneness or just the shift in a new situation almost just allowed for the change in perspective or the ability to, actually finally see and listen to some of the things going on, because it isn't the outwards focus on everyone else all the time.
It's not the reaction that I'm having to other people, Yeah. It was a lot of things going on at one time for sure. And I just remember thinking like, I also felt like in my relationship, I did feel like I was always, if I could just be this way, it would be better. If I could only be more like this. And there were so many fucking shoulds in this relationship and in my mind, in my partner's mind. And once I got out of that, I was kind of like, holy crap, like I can do whatever the fuck I want. I got married at a really young age. And so I did in a relationship, I certainly didn't feel like I had massive limitations, but there were always these, like, you're supposed to be a certain way. And I kind of really glommed onto that. And once I was by myself, all these different steps happened where I was like, dude, first of all, I'm like way more powerful than I realized. Like, I can do shit. I am my own, it was just really a mind fuck when I realized like I had underestimated myself and kind of the possibilities of, what were out there for me. And so it's been, it's been a bunch of years now, and I'm still like, I said to a friend of mine the other day, I'm like, I'm fucking killing it, man. I'm just like, I can do shit, like, I don't know what it is, but it's just having the space to kind of find a connection to myself and how I'm feeling even. At the same time, I also started smoking a lot of weed. I told Ray this the other day. And that too has just been like, I can relax enough to really like know how I feel and, just, be. And it's amazing. It's fucking amazing.
And I just want to take a moment to say thank you, Pam, for calling in, because it's funny, you say baby steps, but you actually haven't been participating, and when I say participating, just chatting with us in the Patreon groups, which is on the private side. You're now on a call-in show. You're actually on an episode. You're fucking killing it.
I'm just pushing myself.
And you're making it look easy, and we really appreciate it, because that's exactly it. As you know, my own marriage just ended, and there's a long story behind that. But what's so interesting is that I didn't have that same like, oh, I have my space back to the same degree, and it's because I went into that relationship understanding I needed my space. Like there was those points where it's like, I'm going to respond in the way that I need to respond rather than the way that I would normally respond to keep this person happy with me, to guarantee the relationship would continue. Right. And I noticed a number of times throughout that process that admitting the relationship could end at any point, being willing to put it on the line and just say, look, we don't need to continue this, is what actually made it stronger for the duration that it lasted. But the idea that it must last forever is, I think, what undermined it.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah, I definitely feel like I get this, slightly different topic, but I get this comment a lot from people where they'll say like, oh my God, you were married for 24. And I always say like, I missed 25 years by about a week. But, you were married for 24 years. Oh, what a huge waste. Oh, do you regret it? I'm like, what the fuck are you saying? Like, that was half of my life, essentially at the time. I was right around 50. And it's like, I don't regret that at all. But I also feel like I lived an entire life. I was married, I raised a family, lived all around the world, did all these great things. And yes, the relationship was difficult at times, like all relationships are, but I didn't end it. But I'm glad somebody did because I didn't realize it wasn't working for me because, again, I wasn't in touch with myself. And so if he hadn't ended it, I would still be there. I'd be miserable. I'd be depressed, So it was a gift in that sense. But yeah, things are not meant to always
mutually
last
contributed
forever.
to. I mean, you may not realize it, but I mean, it's a little uncommunicated things that led to that happening. So it was
Right.
definitely still you in one form or another. So no, I really appreciate what you're saying there because it really is important to recognize that you can be empowered. I wanted to share something with you because I thought you might find this interesting. If you look into the Mayan calendar, the long count calendar and all of that, and you look at their culture, they actually thought that you completed one full life cycle in 52 years, that after
no
52
kidding.
years, you were reset and starting an entirely new life cycle. So that's kind of exciting. I'm looking forward to that.
That's why I feel great, right?
So does that mean the halfway is about 26?
Funny,
Yes,
eh?
I was
That's
thinking
usually
of
when we
that the
wake
other
up.
day, Andrew.
Exactly. But I find it very, very funny that people have even the perspective that, oh, waste of time. Like, it's fucking insane to think that, because it's like, what's the alternative? Right? Like, what is not a waste of time? Staying in the relationship for the rest of your life? Like, is that, and then is it just a longer waste of time? It's like, at what point is it not a waste of time versus a waste of time? Like, I don't understand the line. Is it if you stay in a relationship that you're not happy with for the rest of your life? Is it if you don't go into a relationship that you could potentially not be happy with at all? Like, where is that line drawn? Like, you can't make any other decision. You can't go through it any other way. So how the fuck could it be a waste? That doesn't make any sense. It's like it was a whole entire experience that you went through. Like, right? It's I don't know. People make me laugh sometimes with those sort of perspectives on things that, something should last forever. It's like thinking something should last forever and the fear that something will last forever are kind of, I don't know, two of the heaviest things we hold on to, basically, right?
Yeah. I also remember thinking my mindset in the relationship was that it was going to last forever. That's what you assume when you're getting married. And then when it didn't, it was like, have I done something wrong? And the biggest feeling that I had, I mean, I had the feeling the entire relationship I was doing something wrong, but the biggest feeling I had was like, what's going to happen to me? I'm out. I have nothing tethering me. I'm totally disconnected. I'm kind of floating around. That's the general feeling I had when the relationship ended. And in a way, I mean, it was really frightening for me at the time, but it was the best thing because it was just so open-ended. It's like, it can be whatever and it is going to be whatever, whether you do anything or not, it's happening now, so that was like a really, really pivotal moment as well. It's like, here I am, and it's just going to be me from now on. And I, of course I had my circle of people and all that, but now I realize what's happened to me is things are turning out great.
And that's it. It's just maintaining that and realizing that, relationships are just being yourself. Right? That's really all they are. And the more you can be yourself, the more the relationship forms organically rather than trying to be a relationship, which always seems like an artificial box that you're putting yourself in, expecting things to be fluid, and it just doesn't work. And so I really appreciate you joining us, Pam. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Gladly. No, I look forward to chatting with you after this in the Patreon group, if you can make it.
I'll be there. I've put everything on my calendar now. So well, thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Talk to you. Awesome to have you on, and looking forward to chatting with you in about an hour.
Oh, and you've got huge amounts of shout outs in the chat section. So thank you to everybody who's listening. If you'd like to join us on Patreon after, you can see more of Pam. Pam, I will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye, Pam.
That was awesome.
Fuck yeah.
It's great to talk to Pam. We have another person in the waiting room. I just want to mention to anybody who's out there, if you want to jump in here, if you want to be part of the conversation, you can do so. Just go to dualisticunity.com/live. Fill in the little form, and then you will end up in the waiting room. You can have up to 10 minutes just to shoot the breeze with us. We are joined by Levi, and Levi doesn't know what he wants to talk about, but we're having an earlier show than normal, so he's excited and he just wants to talk. We're having an earlier show than normal, so he's excited and he just wants to talk. Earlier show than normal, so he's excited and he just wants to talk.
I want to see if I come up too. Getting some feedback, Levi. I think you still.
Yeah. Hey guys, I had some technical issues here.
No worries. Glad you can make it, man. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's cool. I thought about it like actually a few days ago because I was like, oh, it's call-in days in a few days. Maybe I should stay up and join. And I was like, oh, it's too late because it basically started at 12. And then suddenly you move it a couple of hours, and I will for sure join when I saw that. So yeah. Yeah, so cool to be here. Absolutely. I'm not like as I said in like the writing thing. I didn't know what to talk about, but obviously, like my brain immediately started to come up with things to talk about as soon as I clicked submit there. So I thought I'd maybe share a little bit about like how it's going at work, because in the Patreon groups I've been talking a lot about struggling a lot at work, and I've gotten a lot of support from you guys, from the community, and got some beatings from Mark in the Discord channel on the whole work thing. So things have actually started to what do you call it, like started to flow a lot, and I feel this, it's like basically like what I've stopped doing is listening to all the ideas that the brain have, like how to avoid the work. Like that's more or less is, because I could spend like half the day just, you know, moving between places to work because that was a good idea. And then I had to have lunch, and then I went back to work, and then I needed a coffee, and then I'll go home because then I'll focus better. And it was insane. Like it was, yeah. But it's really let go, and I feel this tremendous energy behind me when I'm working, and it's like it's very like obviously positive. And in the summer, I've done so much stuff that just I've been thinking about while moving from cafe to cafe, like in the spring. So it's just it's really great, but I have to say I'm thinking maybe I'm overdoing it a bit now. I'm just feeling some fatigue, and it's like I feel the energy still, but I feel like my body has some fatigue, and I'm like, today, I'm not sure if you can see it, but I had like a red blood vein in my eye and stuff like that, which I usually don't get. And then suddenly I get a headache, and which I usually don't get either. So it's just, I feel like maybe I'm pushing myself a little bit too much. So I would just love, I know you guys are also, you know, trying to run a business, and just, I would love to hear your perspective on like how you balance the life, because I see that what I've been doing now, even though it's actually been feeling great, and I've been thinking a lot about, okay, so I'm doing this, and a part of me is like, this is wrong, you're working too much, but it's like, but I'm feeling great, I'm feeling full of energy, I'm feeling like I can just go on, and like I don't want to go to sleep, you know. And so it's like, but I understand kind of a big part of me is like, this is not good for you, you know, because that's how it's been before, but I'm just not sure if it's true. But still, I am noticing some physical side effects. So anyway, I'll stop talking for a bit.
I love this discussion. Yes, that's great. You're going to have a lot of energy, and I can keep working and working and working and working. And because I'm not carrying all my preferences and things like that, there's no reason I can't, right? And that's great. But your body's not used to you doing so. Your body's used to you working through a lot more stress. Your body's used to you, getting tired and whatnot. And so it's just like going to the gym. You're pushing yourself a little bit, settling back, pushing yourself a little bit, settling back. And this is how we surpass our limitations, one step at a time, not all at once, right? And so you're going to find balance now. But what you're discovering is how much energy is really there. Right. And it's just because you're not thinking about all the doubts and all the fears and all the second guessing and all of that stuff. You're just doing. Right. And what you start to recognize is that you really can just keep doing. But it's going to take a while for your body to catch up with that. But, I'll tell you just from experience, everything becomes a lot more fun. Like you just have wider eyes for everything that you do because you're involved with it. And your body will adjust to that. And you can push yourself. But that in mind, remember, rest is important too. Right? It's nice to feel good as well as mentally feel good. Like your body, if it's feeling a little sluggish, pay attention.
Yeah. And I think it's like that process of finding out, like going through it, you can't really know what your bounds are without going over them or crossing them and maintaining a sensitivity to it, but also I guess this is something I kind of wanted to bring up. It's pretty relevant to this, just that fear of something lasting forever. I think we get caught up in, or at least, I get caught up in all the time. And then when it hits me, then when it hits me, it's like, no, it's not going to last forever. Like this is just something that you're going through. It shifts the perspective of it enough, but it's interesting how quick, with anything, really, I almost immediately make the assumption that it's gonna last forever, like whatever shit I'm going through. And that's, Ray brought up, that's the experience of hell, basically, is thinking that whatever you're going through is gonna last forever, or that. And then on the flip side, it's like when you're going through something you're enjoying, it's like the hope that it will last forever and the fear that it won't. And that's the back and forth that we go through. And so I don't know, it sounds like right now it's like this is more or less a new experience for you. And to Ray's point, it's the body getting used to a new sort of thing, just like muscle soreness at the gym. Like you don't work out for 2 months and then you go to the gym, you're gonna be sore as fuck the next day. And so it's like a variation of that, and it's getting used to that. And so I don't think there's anything necessarily to be overly concerned about, but just having the faith in yourself to know that this is you working out what the balance will be. The balance can't be found from just thinking about the balance or listening to some fucker on YouTube tell you how to balance your life. It's like there is no objective way to balance it. It's just you, and this is you finding out what the optimal balance is, which doesn't really exist because it's just what you're doing all the time anyway.
I have a comparison I'd like to make very quickly because I'm a parent. So this is something I've actually seen developmentally. Do you remember being a kid and just wanted to go out because you were having so much fun with your new bike or your sled or anything like that? And you were just enjoying yourself so much. And your parents are like, you're going to get tired. You're like, I'm fine. I want to play some more. And then you come back and you're just bagged. And it's just because you were having so much fun. Right. And true, that's making you stronger. True, you're growing and all of that. But you learn to respect that boundary a little bit more as you get older, right? You learn to like, I'm feeling a little tired. I'm going to go home before I catch a cold, that kind of thing. But it's just having fun. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but we get a little carried away, and that's okay too. That's how we learn balance.
Yeah. That is interesting because it's not like it's new for me to like work this much, because I worked in like a quite intense job before. Before I kind of discovered all of this, but it was like a completely different feeling. It was almost like fear-based, it's more like I have to do this or else, whatever story
Right.
I had made to myself about that. But so it's like it is very different. So but I think a lot of like the old stuff is like that was a very negative thing, I would say, because it's basically what led me to like awakening at some point. Let's do some quotes there and stuff. But it was what led me to like this conversation. It's maybe better to say. So it's it's interesting to notice the difference also. It's like, yeah, there's just so much energy. It's very cool.
It is cool. I'm excited for you, man. And you've been on Patreon with us now for a while, and I know this has been step-by-step progress of just getting out of the way and then wondering, like, is this how it's supposed to feel? Every time the answer is like, yeah, and just continue on. I'm so excited for you. I'm looking forward to meeting you. And again, we appreciate you bringing this up, because it's something that we're all going through. It really is a transition. Like I go through this all the time, less and less now, but should I be feeling like life's this fucking easy? And it's not that I don't have challenges. Like I said, my marriage just ended. I'm a parent to a teenager. Like, I've got some shit to worry about for sure. I just don't worry about it. Like that fear and that doubt and that urge to like know where it's going is just not there anymore. And it's not there because it never really served any purpose outside of giving me something to fucking stress about. Right? It didn't actually make me more efficient in any way, shape, or form. If anything, it made me fucking exhausted. I started hating everything that I did, thinking about that stuff. Now it's just what it is. It's just what it is. And then it's the next thing it is. And then it's the next thing it is. But I'm so used to waiting for that other shoe to drop that I sometimes forget I don't give a fuck if it drops.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Thanks a lot for your perspectives on this. It's it's exciting. I'm just finding out, I guess.
Yeah. Always fun to find out, but appreciate you calling in, Levi, as always.
Yep.
Glad you're able to make it. Yeah.
Okay. See you guys.
See you soon.
See you, man.
And again, everybody who is listening to this, do join us on Patreon. Levi is one of our Patreon supporters. He's been a huge help to us. He's inspired many a conversation, and a lot of what we talked about in the podcast has been inspired by the conversations that we have on Patreon. So if you're enjoying this and you're starting to recognize that nobody here is trying to act like they fucking know anything or everything, we're just going through stuff, talking about it, sharing it, learning from it, making light of it if we can, because making it heavy doesn't fucking help by any means. And so we're just sharing the process of going through the process of being the process. You don't have to be an expert, but we really appreciate it when you come on with a degree of authenticity and vulnerability, a willingness to talk, a willingness to discuss, not just something you're trying to pitch as the next belief that somebody should hold on to, because that happens too. But this is why I cherish this community so very much, is because there is very much this open vibe that we embody, each and every one of us, because of the path that we are on individually, not because the community is an open community, but because you are more open because of the work that you do, and that ripples out. It really is very exciting.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I wanted to go back to something we were talking with I think it was Pam about, maybe Amanda, with like the inability to know how you're perceived. Like, I feel like it's fucking like I'm going back to first grade with that, but it's
It's the
like
master class.
Oh man, it's like uncomfortable. It's been very uncomfortable, like really uncomfortable, because I'm realizing that I was still, and like so like over the past, I don't know, and I guess in your experience with the breaking down of that, like the recognition that your ego isn't just your idea of yourself, it's your idea of everyone, and you can't be sure of the idea of yourself. You can't be sure about your idea of everyone, and it's like, maybe when I was younger, I felt absolutely certain that perspective was correct. But it's not like the shift has been, now I know that it's incorrect. It's just a more willingness to question it, but still thinking that it was correct to some degree. Like, I still thought my perspective of myself was correct, and I still think it now. I'm not saying it like fucking past tense shit, but my perspective of everyone wasn't it, and like isn't it, and can never be it, and I can never actually know. Like, there's a part of me that's like starts to feel like I'm just fucking floating around, like I don't know anything, can't be sure of anything. And it's felt like I've been holding on to some of that stuff, a lot of that stuff, like really, really assuming that the way I see myself is how other people see me. And the fact that it's been hitting me that like, no, that's like the way you see yourself is almost absolutely positively not how anyone sees you, because it's not even what you are. Like, so it can't even be, it's not even a little bit you. It's not even a tiny bit you. And I have no idea how someone sees me. And I think that's why I'm caught off guard when someone says something that doesn't match my idea of me. And there's almost like a, like kind of glaze over it. Like you don't even consider it because it's not a way that you see yourself. So it isn't even taken into consideration that it could possibly be true. So it's not even, it's almost not even processed in a way. Like it is, of course, but not like, not noticeably or not knowingly being processed. Ah, man, it's yeah.
Yeah. Because if you can't rely on perception as truth, yours or anyone else's, then you're only left with what is and the infinite perceptions of what is. But the perception is never what is. And so all you're left with is you, is the experience of being you. That's it. And all of the infinite perceptions that you can take of that experience. And that is where the exploration comes in. When you recognize that it's really just you and there's nothing but infinite perceptions of what that means that alter your experience. And they do alter your experience. This is why the placebo effect is so fucking mind-blowing. That's the point, is that your perceptions actually do alter your experience. The question is how much. But if we can never get out of a state where we believe our perception immediately, then we can never really experiment with it. And it's the fear that you have to deal with, the fear of not having control, of not being able to know. And that's why we circle this. We'll see it. Oh, yeah, no, perception is not truth. And we'll take that into the degree that we can, but we'll hold on to the perceptions that we like. Right? It's the perceptions we don't like we're trying to let go of, but they're all perceptions. All perceptions aren't the truth. They're only fragments. They're only slight different perspectives of something that is vast and infinite. You.
Oh man, because it's not just like and I've had this conversation with people like, oh, you know, positivity, affirmations, tell myself positive things, think positively, but that can't exist in a vacuum. Positive perceptions cannot exist separate from negative perceptions, because you don't have control over what side it falls on. It's like, is that another mechanism of control? Like the positivity affirmation shit. It's like, oh, if I just tell myself this, but you're believing something that's separate from you that you don't have control over, but you're investing.
And it's very limited, right?
Yeah.
Like if you watch, there's this video circulating of Jim Carrey. And it's when he was younger and he was talking about how he used to sit on a certain street in Hollywood and he would look out at the scenery and he would tell himself over and over, I'm the greatest actor. People want to work with me. I'm going to make all this money. I'm going to be famous. I'm going to do all, and he would do that. And he got all of that shit, didn't he? Except it wasn't what he asked for. It wasn't what he wanted. It was an overly simplified view of something that ended up being a toxic fucking thing that he had to go through and let go of. So beware perception. Perception is never what it is. It's always oversimplified. It's like a concept, right? It's always oversimplified.
Oh my God. Because he's like, I love the man, but he's like, for people who are in the manifestation community, he's like poster boy. You know, the stories he's told about writing that $10 million check and being,
despite his warnings.
That's the thing, is like, he did that. And then he went into a deep fucking depression. Like no one thinks about that part. Everyone's like, oh, manifestation. It's the best. Like Jim Carrey had that bicycle and then he got it, and then he wrote the $10 million check, and then he got it. Manifestation's real. Manifestation's real. And it's like, fucker. And then he got depressed as fuck for a while and realized, and has quotes saying, I wish everyone could realize all their hopes and dreams so they could realize that it's not the answer. Like, that's a part of it too. So like, is it really what you want? Is it really what's best? We blindly follow that shit. Like, this is what's like definitely going to be best for me. And someone like that, who people point to in the manifestation community, like they got it. And it's like, yeah, but he got depressed right after. And he said, he openly talks about how all of that stuff was not what he thought it was going to be, what he wanted. And people will look at half the story, be like, well, look at that. Just thinking like, oh, well, if I do it and I just get what I want, then it's going to work for me. And they don't even consider that the person they're looking to, who it worked for, that's not the full story of how it happened. So that's fucking unreal.
Yeah. Well, this is something that we got across in our manifestation workshop. And I encourage anybody who's interested, because I have a real beef with the manifestation shtick that's normally sold, just because it's very much this end result. If you got to manifest something, now you're manifesting. It's like, what do you think you've been doing this whole fucking time? Like, the entire time, you are the manifestation. You are reality happening moment to moment to moment to moment. So if you're sitting there going, I need this, I need this, I need this, what you're manifesting is a feeling of lack. Right. And so even if you get a bunch of shit, you're going to be blinding yourself to all the other things because you need to feel like that's giving you more. And that's where the toxicity comes from. That's where the consequences come from. We have somebody here in the waiting room, and they would like to discuss how to facilitate the paradigm shift into this embrace of the subjective experience. I'm just going to leave that alone and pass it over to Andrew.
I'm excited to see where this goes. Stephen. Oh, Stephen.
Welcome.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, I can. How you doing? Good to see you.
Fantastic. I'm doing well. How are y'all doing?
Doing well.
Turn the volume up a little bit. Yeah, so I'm very new to y'all's content. I'm very new to this space in general. And so just starting to learn about things like mindful meditation, Jim Carrey, ironically, not so much about his manifestation journey, but just some of the stuff he's talked about more recently of, not a guy experiencing the universe, but he's the universe experiencing a guy, those sorts of things. And those things that maybe 5 years ago would have just sounded like apeshit crazy stuff to me. But now I've deconstructed my Christian faith and kind of have been trying to figure out, what does this look like? Because now the culture and the faith that I knew for so long just doesn't make sense anymore. And so, I think intellectually I've dabbled with some of the things that y'all talk about. But from y'all's experience, how is it that you, for lack of a better word, manifest that awareness of your subjective experience and really take that in as the modality that you're living life now, to accept that you are changed, that you are this experience, that there's this non-dualistic approach to life? What did that look like for y'all?
Glad to have you here, man. I'm excited for your journey. You're definitely going to enjoy the podcast for sure, because this is really what it's all about. And a large part of it, I'm going to pass it to Andrew because he's far more recent to all of this than I am. But the biggest part is just to keep questioning the assumptions that you rely on day to day. And at first it's going to be, today's going to be a shitty day. I don't know that. This person's judging me. I don't know that either. And you're going to keep doing that. And then as you do that, you're going to start to become more and more in touch with the subjective experience, because you're not so focused on the external world, quote unquote external, right? A lot of our focus on the external comes from the fear of not being enough, of trying to identify in a certain way that we have to keep up and maintain and do all that. So other people become very important when you're in that state of mind. As you let that go, you start to recognize it was always just your fear, that the judgments you were afraid of are in fact your own. And so it becomes closer and closer to the subjective. And it is a long path. And so it is one that I recommend you just don't rush. You're on the path already. The fact that you're here is huge. And so I'm very excited to have this conversation with you.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I can talk a little more specifically about, but I mean, what Ray said is pretty much just sums it up. Like all the assumptions that I have, I don't really know. And those assumptions run deep, and we don't even realize a lot of the assumptions that we have about certain things, about ourselves, about other people, about the situation that we're in, about reality, about just everything going on in general. Like we have assumptions about it, but we don't really know essentially any of them. And so for me, about 2 years ago, I realized basically that I've been maintaining a story of myself, a story of me for, my entire life, as long as I could remember. And it was all based on things that had happened, but I had never really, the whole story in that moment that I was holding on to wasn't what I was in the moment. And so I had never really experienced all of the past situations right now. And like, I didn't really in reality have a past that wasn't just maintained by a story. And then I realized that the whole story of me was based on that past and based on all of those things. And so could that really be me if I was just here now, if I just was what was? And so that after that, I kind of, it was still, I recognized that, the story I tell myself, the thoughts I held on to weren't the truth of what I was, but it's like it expanded my perception of myself a tiny bit to be like, oh, and I kind of settled upon I'm the awareness of Andrew. So it was like there was still definitely Andrew involved in that, and a story is there always is to some degree. And it was just that I took it a little bit less seriously, and there was a big weight sort of lifted. But and then so over the past 2 years, it's just been a willingness to continue to question all of those assumptions, and they keep coming up, and I keep questioning them, and there's more and more things that come up, and there's more and more concerns from every variation to, like, the question of whether I've even, let go of anything, whether I've done anything of value in my entire life, whether I've actually done anything, period, of anything. And so there's always assumptions that sort of come up. And so just the willingness to question them, and the willingness to face the discomfort that comes with the uncertainty, at all times, like whatever you're going through. It's like, I don't really know that, because a big part of me wants to know that. I'm like, I want to know something. It's like, yeah, but you don't really, but what you know is here and now. Like, this spot that you're in because you're experiencing it, and you are the experience of it. And without so many assumptions of what's happening and what you are and how you're doing and all those things that you can't possibly really know, you're just there, and you can explore it, you can relax into it, you can actually be involved in it, as opposed to being focused on what you're getting out of it or what you're becoming because of it. You can actually finally start living your life and being involved in the situation for the sake of being involved, as opposed to doing it for some ulterior motive to get somewhere, to build yourself, to do something to add to yourself, because you have this underlying assumption that there's always something wrong with you when there isn't. And so it's letting go of that idea and just finding out what you're capable of, not for any reason necessarily, but just out of enthusiasm and enjoyment. And it just kind of is what happens when there isn't so much weight, which is just comes from our certainty, thinking that we know, when the reality is that we don't.
Also want to mention very quickly, because you come from a Catholic background or a Christian background, that's going to be a real fucking bitch. That's going to be a pain in the ass. And it's mostly because of the concept of God. That's really going to keep getting in the way. And I know, because I was raised Roman Catholic. It was a big one. And even in points of stress going into my 30s, I would find myself talking to the universe and going, what the fuck am I doing? So it comes in stages, but it's again, it's the willingness, right? Just the willingness to question. And you already got that, obviously.
Yeah, I do think there is a lot of it that has to do with letting go of the certainty. Because I was a Southern Baptist pastor. I went to seminary. I got my master's in theological studies. And so everything about my identity was wrapped up in having all the answers. I mean, I was the guy. If you had a question about the meaning of life and what happens after death, you come to me. And so to go from a whole paradigm of where the foundation of my security and my identity was wrapped up in being the guy that had the answers to now I'm the guy with more questions than most and I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about most of the time. It's been a radical paradigm shift of just like I don't know anything and trying to, as you're saying, relax into that. I mean, just being on this call, I'm constantly thinking about, do I sound smart? Do I sound stupid? Am I sitting correctly? Like, who else is watching? What are they going to think of me? Like, just being able to relax into the experience just is antithetical to everything in me right now. So that's kind of where I'm at, is how to relax into the experience. So,
as best you can. So you're already doing it. And the nice thing is the more you do it, the more you start to recognize that you can. Right. And that's it. It's just an ongoing path of self-refinement. And it really is that simple. We want to keep coming up with ideas like, what do I do next?
yeah.
What do I do next? It's like, no, just keep jumping in. Just keep jumping in. And what I love about it is the fact that now that you're not holding on to answers, you are so much more valuable to everybody else who doesn't have any. Right. Because instead they're looking for answers. And there's always somebody who's like, I've got one for you, that stops them from growing. But to meet somebody who's like, yeah, I'm there with you. Let's keep looking together. I mean, that's huge. That's actually being in this together. That's communion, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I appreciate y'all's time. It's great. I'm going to be listening to y'all for sure. Definitely gripped by the gummy runs, but glad that it brought me to the podcast because this is the good stuff. So, yeah, y'all have a good rest of your day.
You too, Stephen. We really appreciate you being here and participating with us. You did a great
absolutely. Oh, thank you.
You killed it, man. Excited to chat again soon. See you, Stephen.
That is going to be an interesting path. I really hope we get to talk to Stephen again. Stephen, if you're still listening, definitely join us on Patreon someday if you can, or every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, we have a free live group. You can register at dualisticulunity.com in the live event section. We do this every week, Friday or Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern time. It's for a full hour, so you can just be in the group conversations, but there's a lot in the entire journey, and I'm very, very excited for where you are, and I definitely want to hear updates whenever you have the chance to update us. That would be great. We have another person in the waiting room, another person who we've talked to many times. It's nice to see her. I know she's been a bit busy. Marie has been a part of the community for a long time, and as always, is an insightful and inspiring member.
Very excited to chat with Marie. Waiting for her audio. There she is. Marie, what's up?
Oh God. Me navigating technology. Wow. So good to be here. It's so funny because I feel like I've been part of this conversation the whole time, and I have been. And so it's just I guess it's I'm gonna be saying words out loud and now y'all will hear me, but it feels like you already have been, which is it's a fun ride. It's so good to see you. I had like a billion things that came through my mind of what I was gonna say, and even this line, if I'm being honest. But I'm just gonna see where it goes. It's been fun, like listening to everybody's perspective, everybody's thoughts, and like resonating so hard with them. And one that stands out is this recognition that you've been having, Andrew, with like the perception of others and like how it's not what you think it is. Because I think it's funny because you've said this so often, and that's like one of the first videos that I remember like drawing me in about you. And I think it's funny how often we continue to like the layers run deep. Like you can like have it, and then you can really have it. And it's like, wait, no, you can really have it. And then it's like, you don't, what's having it even mean? I don't know. But like, you just like continue to unlayer, I guess. And it's just so funny to like watch you go through this. And like, it's cool to have also been around long enough to see you, because I feel like my resonations almost come in like cycles I've recognized. So it's like almost seeing you unlayer, and watching Ray then laugh really hard with enthusiasm that you're going through this recognition. And like, it's just so joyful. It's all the things. Like even when I said like I'm happy to join or whatever, like if possible, happy is not even the right word. I've cried during this episode already. I felt uncomfortable. I've laughed so hard. Like I felt like happy. It's all the things. And it's just it's really cool to be here. I'll pass it on right now.
Oh, I feel that. Absolutely. And I think one of the things I appreciate the most about you, Maria, is that you are fully involved with the entire experience of whatever the fuck it is we're doing here, right? That's what it is. It's the full experience. You're not here to necessarily learn a certain thing. You're not necessarily here to pick up something that you can pass on to others. It's just the experience of being you. You just happen to be with company that really appreciates what it is to be ourselves. And so it's meant to be easy. And that's why I think my favorite part is when people come to a conversation and then they freeze and they're like, shit, I wanted to talk about something. It's like, you just did. Like, it's fine. Just keep talking. Right. And that happens all the time. We do it on the podcast. There's been numerous times where Andrew's been like, Ray, and I'm just like, I got nothing. I'm going to start talking. And then within a few minutes, all of a sudden my brain's like, oh, this is how we talk. And it starts to work out. But you got to kind of go through that warming up of the orchestra, as it were. And sometimes it's just a matter of going, I got nothing. I'm just going to play this note. And then all of a sudden you're just like, aha, that's how to play. And you get into it. And it's a lot more fun. But that's it. It's about it being fun.
Oh, yeah. I've so many times where I'll just forget the point I'm going to say. And it's funny because that going into it with the idea that this is the optimal thing to say is holding on to a degree of certainty, right? And so I catch myself too, because I'll have it and I'll be like, oh, it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be such a great insight. Oh, the perfect response here, and then it's just like not there. And then you just say something, and then someone like, if it's on a Patreon call, raises their hand or raise like, oh, and I can see his face light up, and then he like writes something down. And meanwhile, I'm just fucking talking just to talk because everything that was in my head left. And so meanwhile, it's leading to another insight and another thought. And sometimes it's even just as I start talking after I've forgotten what I'm going to say, like I'll come up with an insight myself and I'll be like, where the fuck did that come from? And then because it's that experience of talking without a direction, without an intention, without a desire for it to be taken in any way, shape, or form. Like it allows for certain things to come up. It allows for new shit to arise, right? Like it's the only way for new shit to arise, because otherwise, you have an insight and you're trying to remember it, and that may be a new thing, but the really, really like genuinely new shit comes up when you're not trying, you're not holding on to the right thing to say, the correct thing to say. And you get to that point where just like end of the road and you're like, fuck, I don't know what to do. And then you just jump, and then you find out, and then you keep going. And then, you do it again and again and again and again. And it's always that feeling of like, fuck. And then you jump, you're like, all right, I'm okay. And then it's just becomes, there's less of a reaction to it, I've found. Cause like, holy Christ, 5-10 years ago, if I were talking and I forgot what I was going to say, it would be like, oh man, like my whole yeah. Sometimes it would just be like, leave the situation entirely. Like if I was on a call like this, called in and forgot, I'd just be like, and then just leave. It's like, I'm not going to deal with that. But that's the beauty in being able to step into something. Cause if you're not taking yourself too seriously, you can laugh at it, and then the conversation ensues, the situation ensues. But there's so many, things we have growing up where that's, we have pushback against those types of things, the ability to just not know and just find out. Like, how many times do you hear that in school? Like, you can't not know, just bullshit something, just come up with something, just say something. That's better than admitting that you don't know. Like the amount of times I heard that it's not okay to not know. It's like, oh my God, probably thousands growing up. It's unreal. Meanwhile, that's like probably my favorite quote right now is I don't know. It's the best fucking phrase ever. It's the most relaxing thing you could ever realize, right? It's beautiful.
Oh my God, totally. And that's what came to mind too when thinking of like, well, I don't know what other people's perceptions of me are. It's like, well, who cares what they are? Like, it does not matter because it's not who I am. And even my own perception of who I am is not what I am. And, you know, same thing, but like, it's just so much more freeing too. And that's why these conversations often flow, or not, there I am like saying as if one would be better than the other, but like it just, there's a feeling or there's a intuition thing where like I can kind of tell the difference between like, it's like the fear, like there's less fear that's involved. So it's just, it's ultimately gonna feel better. Like I don't like to limit it. It's just so limiting. Like everything, it's so limiting because I remember even, so something just happened before the call where it was like, I put like one of those binder clips on my wire and like just clipped it on as I'm listening to you all. And then it slid down the wire and it was like kind of fun, like, ooh, like that wasn't intentional. And it was just like a fun little thing. And it felt so much of like, it immediately brought me back to being in the dentist's office and like being a kid playing with the, I feel like I've said this before. I'm having like a deja vu moment. Okay, just gonna acknowledge that. And I was like playing with it and then recognize like, or remember the recognition, maybe not in these words, but like that I feel so limited in my, like it was felt like very trapped because I couldn't control where I was going as like a child so much because like you're physically being brought to different places. And I was for a very long time because that's just like how my mother was. She was like, this is what we're doing today. So like, I remember like thinking there's so much out there that like I'm not experiencing, but like there was something about like playing with it and just accepting where I was and like appreciating for what it was. It's just like, maybe I'm like not like out there experiencing the world and at this moment, but really it's just always this moment, you know? So it's like, you are experiencing the world, you know what I mean? So it's just like a cool, that's what's also freeing about like letting go of, or giving yourself the time to like think and like allow yourself to be open to these recognitions because that just felt like another layer peeled. I don't know, it just felt really freeing and appreciated that random little thing that happened that brings you there. It's cool.
That's it, right? That's your life. Your life is the moment to moment shit. It's not about anything being, mind-blowing or expensive. You don't have to travel to Tibet. You don't need to meet the Dalai Lama. Like you could just look at this thing that's sliding down the cord and go, wee. And the whole point is that you're keeping it light on yourself. This is something I was thinking about yesterday when I was cooking. I talk to myself. Like I say things, I make jokes, I laugh at myself, I do all kinds of stuff. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, oh shit, that's actually the same thing that people who enjoy hanging out with me enjoy hanging out with me for. And it's not because it has anything to do with them. I would be doing it on my own, right? Because it's about my relationship with my moment all the time. And so, yeah, it's really good that you can just feel light and jump in and have a conversation and not second guess. And that's why I love the community. So we appreciate you being here, Marie.
Yeah. And I really liked that insight. It brought me back. I had the same fucking thing in the dentist's office. I don't know what it is with dentist's office and little slidey things, but that bead being separate from the slidey thing is the experience of freedom, right? The idea that, you should live life in a certain way, that have that trajectory is being locked into that. And it's like, yeah, freedom means you can go anywhere, anything could happen. But what's the alternative? Being stuck on a fucking wire for your whole life? That sounds way more scary and miserable. But this has been I'm excited to get into that more on Patreon if you can make it after we do. We're at time, right? That went kind of quick.
That is correct.
Yeah.
We are at the end of our episode. We really appreciate you walking us to the end here, Marie. It was nice to see you.
I will see you all soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone who could join us with the call-in show today. Thank you, everybody who's in the community. Thank you for just being you. We really just appreciate that, because whether you realize it or not, you're doing the same thing we are, being change. And there's no right or wrong way to do that. Just make it easier on yourself. And what you might find is that you're actually rather good at being change, which is really all we're trying to recognize. So that's it for me. I'm going to pass it over to Andrew, and then we'll see everybody on Patreon in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, this has been a very fun chat today. Yeah. So yeah, I got nothing to add. See everyone on Patreon in 15 minutes.
Sounds great. We love you.